The news from Lake Wobegon is made possible by new Fiber One Buttermilk Pancake Mix. Each serving of Fiber One pancakes has 20% of the daily value of fiber and 0 grams trans fat, available in new buttermilk and original.
It's been a quiet week in Lake Wobegon, Minnesota. Been chilly and drizzly and sort of dismal up there, fog. This last week, Irene Bunsen was driving up that stretch of gravel road, the county road just north of town. She was on her way to a rehearsal of her handbell choir for Lake Wobegon Lutheran, kind of a little bit late, so she just was driving fast as she could, and those terrorist deer, are hanging out in the ditches up there. She wasn't paying attention. The bells were kind of jingling a little bit, even though they're in padded boxes, and she was turning around to try and straighten out a box, and a 6-point buck saw his chance, and this terrorist leaped out of the ditch and managed to collide with her car, and the airbag went off in her face, and the car coasted to a stop, kind of half in the ditch. She got out, dazed, bells all over in the van. There was the corpse behind her on the road. It was like the beginning of a bad movie. She just sat down on the bumper and she thought about it. She's on her way to rehearse Now Thank We All Our God, in whom this world rejoices, who wondrous things hath done, and she was not anxious to see them again after their debacle at the wedding back in September. Val Tollefson, though, has been after her to play the handbells in church. Why did we make this big investment in these expensive bells if we are not going to use them? So she's got to do it again with all that she is up against this week. Thanksgiving coming up. She dreads the thought. Children coming back, exiled children with the beloved grandchildren who are held hostage by the exiled children. Exiled children whose lives are full of problems. Her daughter Leanne has left her husband down in Houston, Texas. The husband has been a part of this apostolic revelation church where they spend the whole service standing and with their arms up above their heads. And they believe that the world is going to come to an end on the evening of January the 21st. She has left her husband because he believes this, and also because she does not care to be submissive, even though he has shown her where in Scripture it says that she must. Well, that's one of the problems, and what can she do? Thanksgiving has been a problem for her for the last several years. She had a terrible time last year. She decided to try a new way of fixing turkey. You should never do this. Never do this. It doesn't matter. The turkey doesn't matter. But she saw a woman, a well-dressed woman on television who, with just a few twists of her wrist, without even breaking a sweat, she deboned a turkey. And then she loosened the skin. How do you do this? You loosen the skin and you rub this dressing pate under it, and then you re-secure it with butcher's string. Irene tried this last Thanksgiving. The family on their way. She did this after she had tried to make pie crust and didn't succeed. Somehow she lost her touch at pie crust. How is this possible? You're just merging flour and lard. It's not so hard. But last year, it was. She just sat down and wept to look at these pie crusts that she had made. It looked like trucks had driven over them. Pie crust is just a discipline. You're supposed to learn how to do it, and it makes you a better person learning to make pie crust from scratch. You're a better person as a result of it. Not many assaults with a deadly weapon are committed by good pie crust makers. Really, not many. People who'd go to the store and buy a frozen pie shell, of course, they just shoot you just as soon as do anything else, but she tried to make pie crust and it didn't work, and she had to fill in with the pecan pie and making pumpkin, even though she despises pumpkin. She opened up a big can of pumpkin pie filling, canned stuff just as good as the fresh. It's just all the same. Pumpkin, just a synonym for mediocrity is all it is. It's just the best pumpkin pie you ever ate, not much better than the worst. It's just all big gloppy thing. Just an excuse for eating nutmeg is all it is. So she shoved him in the oven and she went to work trying to debone this turkey, and she was wrestling with it until her hair was hanging down in her eyes and until the turkey looked like it had been through an autopsy, and she smelled smoke. Here were the pies. They'd been in the oven for an hour at turkey temperatures. She pulled them out. They were carbon pies now. When the kids arrived, Dad was in the lounger. He was kind of half comatose from the football game, and there was a smell of room freshener all over, everywhere. Every room had been sprayed, and Mother had had a couple of strong, stiff drinks. She was overpronouncing her words. The entree was a kind of a turkey divan, kind of a turkey stew. And now she's got to go out and play Now Thank We All Our God with the handbell choir. All 8 of them. She just is terrified at the thought. She was so discouraged after the last rehearsal that she went into Pastor Inkvist's office and she just sat there and put her face in her hands and she just wept. Just wept. He had to tell her that the Christian faith is not about triumph. Not really. It's about forgiveness of sins. It's about grace. It's about accepting who we are and just accepting grace and forgiveness. Jesus came to earth and he disappointed a lot of people who expected him to be a kind of superhero, who expected him to be big military general and to kick butt. And instead, they found this sort of sorrowful man who was a long-suffering servant and who was fond of outcasts and who forgave sin. So surely you can stand up with those people in the handbell choir and play Now Thank We All Our God and just do your best. But Irene just brought back memories of last time, the wedding in September. They wanted Pachelbel's canon, which she hates, despises Pachelbel's canon. She's heard it too many times. But all right, it was their wedding. The mother of the bride requested it, so they rehearsed it. All 8 of them were there for the handbell choir, including Merlette, who kind of goes into a trance sometimes. And the men who play the big bass bong, bong bells. That's about all they can handle, just bong, bong. And then Irene standing up and conducting them. It was one of those big weddings with 12 bridesmaids in autumn gold dresses. And they kind of came in, and then some of them came out, and there were people with them, and the doors were open, and that's how come the dog got into the sanctuary. The dog got in, and he was kind of snuffling around, and then they got the cue from the mother of the bride that the march should begin, the Pachelbel canon, and Irene standing in front of 2 tables of bell ringers, but not 8, 7, because Randy had called in sick that morning. Not aware that you cannot call in sick when you are in a handbell choir. A handbell choir is supposed to be a well-oiled machine, each person doing their part. Bing, bong, bing, bong, blah, 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 blah. You cannot call in sick. Well, he was afraid that he might throw up. It doesn't matter, said Irene. Bring a shopping bag. Just come. But he didn't come, so there were the 7 of them, and Merlette was not feeling well, and Marilyn was there, kind of the rock-solid center of the handbell choir, and now Irene had to handle 3 bells herself in order to take over Randy's bells. And stood, and here came the high sign from the mother of the bride. And now Irene looks at the music stand and sees it's not the canon, it's not Pachelbel, it's Mozart, it's the Turkish rondo. The music was set out wrong. She leans forward, she hisses at them, page 2, and some of them hear her, and other people are just put off by the fact that she's hissing, and they ignore her. These are Lutherans. They believe that if there's a problem, just look away, and it won't happen to us. Page 2, she says, page 2. And now the processional is ready to start, and the 12 bridesmaids, their dresses are rustling back there, and people are whispering and hissing, and now they launch into the Pachelbel canon, played a little faster, the Pachelbel canon, with little bits of the Turkish rondo tossed in. And she's trying to get Merlette's attention. Page 2, Merlette, page 2. And Roger, as usual, is about a half a beat behind. It's a terrible march that brings to mind the end of all things. One would not forecast happiness for this marriage based on the music alone. Marilyn is holding the Pachelbel canon together, ringing 4 bells and managing to keep something going until Irene feels the dog sniffing around there. She kicks at him and kicks Merlette instead, and now Merlette is speeding up a little bit, and now things are starting to come apart, and the dog is sniffing around, and Marilyn is holding the whole thing together, the Pachelbel canon, with a little bit of the Turkish rondo, a little counterpoint, until she feels the cold nose of the dog lift up the hem of her skirt. And she kicks back and she pushes herself forward, and 4 bells fall onto the floor. Boing, 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 boing. And now it's the end of the processional. She sees the bride has reached the front of the church, and Irene ends with a tremolo note. And that's the end of the processional. Her eyes do not meet the eyes of the mother of the bride. She does not look that way. She has only too clear an idea of what's there. Well, somehow they will play Now Thank We All Our God for Thanksgiving. It's such a great holiday. It's that time of year when we're ready for snow, if only we could get it. All the vegetables and the fruit canned, the hats, the gloves, the coats are ready, the lawns are raked, the leaves are in plastic bags. Streets are cleaned. Now we just need some snow, and we'll be all set. The exiles come home on Thursday. Irene thinking about Now Thank We All Our God, thinking about the turkey, working on her baked beans. A little surprise for Thanksgiving. Great Northern beans with chunks of apple, butter, onions, mush them all together. Cinnamon is the key here. You bake it. She's going to try to make a pie crust today, a practice pie crust. It's a wicked world in which so much harm can be done by one person, in which one person is capable of so little good. But at the least, we could make a good pie crust. That's the news from Lake Wobegon, where all the women are strong, all the men are good-looking, and all the children are above average.
The news from Lake Wobegon is made possible by new Fiber One Buttermilk Pancake Mix. Each serving of Fiber One pancakes has 20% of the daily value of fiber and 0 grams trans fat, available in new buttermilk and original.